morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Tuesday, November 25th, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame. A narrow range heading into the RTH open. Just 30 points of range, 25% of average range. You can see over the last 5 and 10 day splits here, we've been averaging well over 120 points, and that's on a current developing basis. We are much more beyond that as of yesterday's close. So a lot of volatility here overall, especially on this pullback and even the bounce in the previous session. Now on this bounce, is price going to be able to maintain acceptance, or do we begin to see another rotation down? That's what we've seen here lately. On this push here, we saw it rotate back down. On this push here, we saw it rotate back down. And now on this bounce, with this narrow range, can they find acceptance and extend, or do we see another rotation back down? Failure to hold here, the 6,700 level early in the day, could open up a bit of a pullback here later in the session. Again, overall, this market starting the week fast here. Bulls want to keep the previous session's midpoint bid, but at the same time, one thing we've been watching here is how's the market going to respond around the larger market structure of 66 on this key range low within this uptrend here. Can it make its move here and finish the month and the year strong, or do we fail on this attempt and break for a wider pullback? So keeping an eye on that edge right now. Looking at the NQ, similar deal here with the NQ. Narrow range heading into the RTH open. This one just 26% of average range right now. 164 points heading into the RTH open. We are also at the counter trend edge right now of this downward sloping channel here. We've seen weakness, strength and weakness, strength and weakness, and here we are again, strength and holding. What happens here if we fail to hold the 24.8 level? That could begin to open up a rotation back down within the downtrending range. Again, overall, this pullback here has been nice. Taking out that key range low, responding here over the last couple of sessions. That's been pretty significant. Can it now, again, finish the year strong? Do we get a rotation back to the Fed levels up above? That's going to be something to continue to watch. But as of right now, we did have some tremendous participation to the upside out of big tech, including Tesla yesterday, Google, AVGO, so many different tickers here showing quite a bit of strength today. However, heading into the RTH open, how is Nvidia going to behave in some of these tech stocks? Are they over rotated? Do we see a bit of weakness back down? Looking at crude oil, let's grab crude here. This one's down 2% right now, on the lowest levels here it's been at in a while. As we mentioned before, at some point we might see one last drop out of crude oil, challenging this pivot low, which is basically 56. Do we get a lower low on that level? And if so, it could be a tremendous lower low failure. It could be a bullish divergence, and that reaction could take us back higher heading into the end of the year. So again, if we get one last drop here, that could be tremendous. Right now on the lowest levels since we bottomed out in October. Do we get a little bit more weakness here, or is this thing ready to bounce back within the short-term range? Because what we've been seeing here is a lot of this action and then back down, and this action and back down. So is it ready to go get that low? We'll see. All right, looking at let's look at gold. Right now, up 1.25%, narrow range as well, 46% of ADR. I mentioned before we're kind of stuck at the middle of this range. We're stuck at the middle of this range, but we could make a move to an edge. And if we do make a move to an edge, it could be a fade opportunity. But basically, we're staying between these two extremes here, 42.50 and 3,900. Currently, we're seeing kind of a rotation up. At the moment, 41.40 will be very important here today. You start to push back below 41.40, and that kind of opens up a bit of a rotation back within the range. So keeping an eye on that zone right now heading into the RTH Open. Looking at, let's take a look here at the YM. The YM right now has a super narrow range, 24% of ADR. The smallest range by percentage here against the other equity futures. You see inside day characteristics. This one's also bounced the least. As you see, the NQ has kind of rallied and stretched here the last couple of days. The ES has rallied and stretched. This thing, while it has bounced on a Friday, kind of held on a Monday. And today, inside day holding further. And while we are seeing a bit of a response here, I guess, off the lower edge and could make that move, it's just not very emphatic at the moment. And to be honest, that high right there, that low, it really kind of creates a key range. And we could be kind of anywhere in this range here for a little bit until we're ready to see expansion. But this pivot high right here is a good one. At some point, if we bust through that pivot high, it can open up a new rotation to the upside. Perhaps 49K could still be ahead. We could still finish the year strong here. But again, as I mentioned, this is the point where if it fails, we're starting to break market structure, and whatever we were expecting to the upside, we likely get it flushed to the downside instead. All right, looking at Bitcoin futures, this is one where I've been watching very closely. I mentioned from the beginning, if we were going to turn down, I felt like Bitcoin and Ethereum would lead the way, and they were the first to really turn down, and have turned down the heaviest. 30+% pullback on this move right now. And that is in line with other massive pullback rotations. If you look at this chart here over the last year or so, this has been a 30% pullback, this has been a 30% pullback, and this is a 30% pullback. 36, 34, 32, something like that. So that right there is right in line with a great discount ahead of the next potential rally that could be ahead. So not a bad opportunity. Could there be better prices? Yes. Yes, there could still be better pricing. Perhaps this pivot low is the first low. Maybe we bounce and we get the secondary low that can then become the low. You know, we've seen it happen time and time again before we rally. Maybe this is one in a series of potential lows here where we might ultimately rally off 75. So again, not a bad spot, decent correction. Maybe there's still a potential bigger or lower low to be had. All right, looking at Ethereum, you'll notice that a lot of these markets have sold off away from their FOMC key levels from October 29th. At some point, do we stop selling off, and then do we start pointing northward to that level? That means 4,010 could be ahead. And how far down do we drop here? Do we get another flash crash or two that drops us into 2150 or into 2000? Because that could provide the next double straight ahead. Do we get that low? Again, maybe not, but the potential is there because we have not found a strong low to work from just yet. So this market could still bounce and could still take another tumble here until we find that strong low. Again, maybe this is the first low and we can come back and say test it later, and that could become the strong low. So not bad, decent discount, a really good discount. As a matter of fact, that might be a 40% discount right here. So by way of discount, yes, but we've seen bigger discounts turn into bigger discounts. So again, keeping an eye on this market for a strong low first. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out here heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.